I think people get the wrong idea when they start making a movie or want to become a filmmaker. They think they want the best camera, the cinematic lighting, good acting, the sound equipment, camera movements, all the different type of gears you need. And, this channel on my Instagram and social media, I do a lot of that stuff. I show you what camera I use. I show you the movement. I show you what lights you use to get those cinematic lighting, the theory behind it. And those are important. Those are things I see as a tool that you use and that makes your film a little bit better. But that's the key word. It just makes it a little bit better. I'm filming this video with an iPhone, and there's a reason behind it, because this video is about storytelling, but also this video is a story in itself. So let me tell you a story. When I first started filmmaking, that is all I wanted. I want the best camera. I want to learn how to use a camera, how to use all the different equipment, because I am a visual person. I watch films and I think, oh, that looks really cool. I want to do that move. That looks really good. I want to have that camera. And I get blinded by all these things. But you know what's funny? There was this one film called The English Teacher. And at the time, I wanted to write something that I had experienced and then made the everything else as a fiction. And because that interesting core part of the story, it made it go viral. And that film, since then, has been my strongest. And it's not because there's fancy lighting, camera movement. It was the start of my career. But that film has never been beaten. Even after I've made over 70 short films, it still is the strongest, is the best, most viewed, most talked about, most engaged. And it's all because there's a good story. So, what makes a good story? Having that own experience definitely helps, but you don't need that. You can still make a good story from complete fiction. What's important is a story needs to be character-driven. The English teacher had a student who was struggling with English, and you see him learning and changing, getting better with English. And then there's a twist, there's a conflict. And then in the end, there's a message from the film. And that basically sums up what is a good story. You want to think about the characters, what their desires are. You show that. Something that people can relate to is a bonus that's even better, because if it's something that people don't really understand or can't really grasp the reality they're feeling, you get the audience detachment a little bit. But if you're a really good writer, you can put them back in with good writing. But this video is about even if you're not a writer. So you got to try to get stories that you're familiar with, that people are familiar with. And then when you have a character that has desires, once that journey's been created, you then create conflict. You might be wondering, what is a conflict in the story I'm telling you now? The conflict is, like I said before, it's the cameras that I really want. It's just can't get away from having the right gear, watching all YouTube videos, getting the right color grading, sound design, and everything but the story. And that's my inner conflict. I think that's most people's conflict. And when you focus so much on everything but the story, the film fails. And don't worry if you can't find a best ending. Just find your twist, your lesson. And most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment and show your messiness, because that's what really powerful storytelling is. That's authentic, that's real. But how do you have a story that makes people remember? Imagine you watched the film before where you remember the intense feeling of emotions from that movie and what made you feel like that. Now imagine your film is that emotional journey. If your movie is about loneliness, every line, every dialogue, every scene has shown that world of loneliness, so that the audience don't just see your story, they felt it. Your characters in your story also needs to have imperfections, because people relate to characters that has weakness and etc. Not the ones that's perfect. That's what they can relate to. That's what they can remember. You also should have subtext, things that make the audience to work out. If you just feed them with all the information, they get bored. They need to make up their own imagination from parts of a story, and that's what makes them remember, make them question long after the credits roll. Okay, I'm running out of different places to put this camera. So getting back to what creates a good story, even if you're not a writer, is think about the characters, think about what drives them, think about the desires and conflict. And I've shot this whole video so far with just an iPhone camera, natural lighting from the window, and no fancy lighting, nothing expensive being used, because I want to prove a point that hopefully you're watching this because you're engaged for the story I'm telling you about how to write a good story. It's almost like Inception, story inside the story. But my point is that you can absolutely make a killer film that can win Oscars with just your phone. As long as people can hear you, as long as it's engaging, it doesn't matter what camera you use. Of course, that doesn't mean that you just don't buy cameras, don't buy lighting, don't think about that. That's still important. That makes it a little bit better. Remember, I said that little bit better. It makes it a little bit more cinematic. And that's nice on the eyes, and maybe people be even more engaged. But honestly, for anyone who's just starting out, I want you to try to make a story with just your phone. If you can tell a good story and people love your film with just a phone, then start using expensive equipment and cameras and lights. Then you'll improve your craft even more. So next time when you ask yourself or YouTube, what should I get my first camera? What should I get my next light? Think about, have you got that story solid, written down, revised, rewritten, and studied and improved as much as you can before you're going out to get your right equipment? I also have a masterclass to teach people how to write good script with a good story, so check out that with a link below in my video. Keep exploring, keep filming. Till next time.